Hey y'all, we are live. We are in this. I'm super excited for today. I actually caught myself getting a little emotional, as if closing night was real, like we were in person. So I'm super excited to be able to share this conversation with you all. I have some amazing folks with us today, and I cannot wait to get this conversation started. First off, let me introduce or reintroduce to you all my co-star, Greg Geffrard. We were hanging out, what was it, last week?
Yeah.
And we, kind of started talking about the show and breaking it down and, giving y'all some inside scoop. So we're going to continue this conversation. But we're going to have a special guest with us today, right? So today, y'all, I am bringing to the virtual stage the co-creator of Told Y'all. As y'all can see, Greg has been rocking this shirt hard. Y'all have seen it in the promo. Y'all have probably seen it around on Instagram and on Instagram and Facebook. And the message of just told y'all black women, like y'all already know. So coming to the virtual stage with us right now, to Byrd Talk, we have the co-creator, the innovator, Miss Lisa Beasley. Let's welcome her to the virtual stage. I want to make sure that this is interactive, y'all. So I'm going to be, you'll see my kind of eyes going a little in different directions. I will be making sure to kind of take a look at the chat. If y'all have questions about the show or questions about what we talk about, make sure y'all are in the chat and y'all are letting us know that you are here. Cool. So I'm turning it over to Lisa. What you got, Lisa?
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here. Greg and Heather. Can I call you Byrd?
Yeah, Byrd.
Okay, Byrd. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about. This is a talk back. You guys just wrapped the third performance from the St. Louis Fringe, correct?
Yes.
So I want to talk about the journey that led up to that, because initially, like, when did y'all know y'all was doing a festival? When did you, like, how did you submit? Like, give me the story that led up to, we got to create this for the festival.
It's been so I knew I wanted to be a part of the St. Louis Fringe Festival this year. I was a part of it last year and was gifted with the award of National Artist of the Year with my show Inheritance, which actually
If they don't, you earned that.
I earned it. I did earn it, but it was a surprise. There was so much that went into the creation of it, and it was just like a culmination of all of my hard work. And so with that award, I was able to be gifted with being the national headliner this year. And so I knew I was going to be a part of it. What I did not know is that it was going to be virtual, right? And so I knew I was going to be a part of it. I knew I wanted Greg by my side because we have created some amazing shows together. This is our 7th time doing a version of HERstory of history, along with 4 or 5 other shows that we have created along the way.
3.
3 or 4.
Disconnect. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So I knew I wanted my partner in rhyme with me there. When we switched to the virtual world.
Yeah, it's a whole new beast, right?
It's a whole new beast.
You know, we used to just go in, showing up, find the tech person, run the tech, find the stage, do the markings.
Yes.
Okay, you in here, it look different in your living room. But now it's like, oh, this is it. It's an entirely different thing.
Yes. Yes. It's completely different.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh no, sorry. It's one of those things where specifically for performance poetry, like feeding off of the room is just like so vital. Like it's just so vital. It's just like, and I'm pretty sure something we'll talk about a little bit later, but like feeling kind of like not constricted, but just like I can't be out here wilding out because of this little mic that's right there and stuff like that. And it's gonna rub up against my shirt. Now you're gonna hear it.
Right. I'm used to like hitting my chest, like when I'm talking and I get into it, like I'm like this, but the microphone is here, so you cannot do that.
Let's talk about that for a little bit. So we're assuming the people that are watching this, they have seen the piece. So we're just gonna be jumping around a little bit, but I kind of want to go where this conversation is going because, so I used to do spoken word back in the day, right? Link, Google it. It's embarrassing. But the performance is so different doing it live than it is on camera. So are there any particular pieces that you're like, man, normally I go in on this one, but you know what? This mic, this sound, the way this boom is set up, I got to stand right here or else. What pieces did that affect? Or did you find like a new way to do a piece that translates to you that you're like, you know what? I could take some of this pared down and put it on stage. Was there any of that?
I think Greg could definitely take the second half of that. I know for me, every single piece that I did needed to be toned down in a way, because if you notice, the space is large. And because it was so large, there was an echo that would occur. And so you had to keep your voice at a certain level to where the mic wouldn't pick up the echo, but you still were able to get the emotions across that you needed to. And so it put me in a completely different space in my brain the day the day before, because we went to go check out the space and we were like, so the shout out to Kyle. Like Kyle was in the space doing all of this to try to track it. And I was like, I don't know how to, when I'm passionate, I get loud. That's just what it is. My voice, it just carries. And my mom's also a teacher. I picked up the teacher voice. So the voice just carries. And I did not know how to translate that over in a way that made sense, but was able to pull it off. Greg, he reinvented some pieces based on the challenges that we had. Go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I actually went the opposite. Well, what we found is two things. One, we found that in order for the mic to pick up without echoing, you had to lower your register. Which worked out really well for because I'm fortunate, like Byrd also like can like drop a register down there, so like that worked out really well, and it was really helpful and really grounding us. The advantage though of having something like a kind of a playback specifically for milk carton, which was turned into, I had a friend say, my friend, oh, I love her to death. My friend Grace hit me up and she was like, I love this 90s style music video. And I was like, I wanted it so bad, but I'm like, no, you're right.
You're right, though. That's accurate.
The lens flare in the back.
Yeah, and so there were things that felt more intricate and more small while I was doing them that the camera made look really big because you could focus in on it, and like things that I knew for a fact I wouldn't pick up if you were like on a stage. And so I had a lot of fun being able to like break out and be in my body in that sense, because there were some pieces that just felt like they required that I focused in my energy. So
I was jealous of how much fun you were having. Like I had no idea that you were having that much fun until I like saw one of the final versions, and I'm like, where was I during this time? Like, why didn't
you were deep into, you were serving some energy and some spirit, sister, because what I got from your performance struck a chord with me.
What do you mean by that? Like, let's unpack that a little bit. What you?
Yes, let's unpack it. Turn the camera around. Yes. So what was drawn to me is like the whole idea of, hey, just the title. You had me at the title alone, right? With the use of the capitalization, you're like, okay. So I might get some. I might be able to see myself in this. We'll see what this is. Your pieces, Byrd, resonated with me so to the point where you would say a line or a phrase or something, and I would be like, that's how I've been feeling my whole life. That's it. There it goes. At one point, you had mentioned the bass and how we're the bass line, meaning that we carry the melody and the rhythm.
You talking about from HERstory of history? Yeah, I mean, Inheritance.
Yeah. So all your pieces, and then in this one, I wish I could remember exactly what the phrase was. I'm gonna remember. It's gonna come to me before this is over. But the tone, I think that you had to pare down, served the moment and the words really well. And overall, this reminds me of, because it wasn't something that y'all intended to do that y'all originally intended to do live. This reminds me of one of those things where musicians, you have their audio version and then you get to see them do it live. You're like, oh, they serving a whole brand new energy. So
Yeah.
Gonna come back when the world is open up again.
Oh, there's something about, I don't know what it is, but like the way Greg and I are able to feed off of one another when we're performing. One of the best compliments I think we have, at least I have received, that I've carried with me ever since we did Her Story of History back in 2016. Bridget, actually, when we did the show for the first time, it was a launch for my book, Mahogany, A Love Letter to Black. Promo. And that's how the show came about. And Bridget was watching, and after the show she came up to me and she was like, there is something about the two of y'all working together, and it's not even just who is performing in the moment. The thing that I missed about the live version was our reactions to each other's pieces when we aren't performing. She was like, that's what I was paying attention to, like the intensity of which you were watching Greg's piece and vice versa, and how your facial expressions and body shifted based on what was being said. And I was in that moment with you because you became an audience member with me.
Mm-hmm.
That's something where I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get back to that space.
I think that's one of the things that we are missing, is that on stage interaction, because most people don't know, especially in the poetry world, if you have a poetry partner that you're working with, the times that they are performing the pieces, that's not the only time you are going to be able to hear it like that. So it's like you do get to be like, oh wow, yeah, this is, she about to say this part, and this is when it goes, almost like you want to say it with them, but you know you can't because you're going to say. So it's like you're each other's hype man in your head. So I feel like you're like, I'm going to say this.
I like there are pieces that Byrd does, and I'm just like in the back, just going like when she goes surprise. Like there are things that is like are just like no. There's one piece in particular that she does is like my favorite piece. It was the first piece of hers that I ever saw her do. 10 Things I Want to Say to Black Men, and pull up your pants. That shit ain't cute. Because I think that's number 5, right?
Yes. Yep.
And I was just like, every time she does that, I'm just like, look, pants, that shit. And I'm just in the background, just mouthing it. But it's just like you, but I do love the something that you brought up, Lisa. It's like I think people tend to forget, like, yes, you're working on a piece together. Yes, we've heard, like, we hear each other's pieces and everything when we rehearse and we do all of this. But this is a piece that just definitely, and I think all the pieces that Byrd and I work on require you to just listen. Like you have to listen. You kind of miss the point of it all. Like if I'm not listening while in this piece, then I miss the point of it being her story of history. Like I am there to also give commentary because Byrd and I are both in conversation with the world. But this, what this began as and what it continues to be is a dialogue between Black men and women. Like it is like, I'm saying something, are you listening? Like you may be in the room, which is always, I think, is reflected in the world. Is just like Black women are always inviting Black men into those spaces. But like, what is your responsibility as a Black man when you are in that space? Are you listening? Are you like truly listening? Or do you just, because you've gone through it a million times, do you think you already know what the other person is going to say?
Yeah. And this is evolved. Like this show is not what we did in 2016. And so we've managed to take this piece and have it be reflective of the times, which it'll
clearly never be the same. Like it sounds like it's going to continue to evolve, because think if the world hadn't closed down, would we have gotten the piece that everybody just saw and like the beautiful footage and like,
no,
right?
We weren't even going to do this show.
Yeah, this was not
the show.
Yeah. Cause okay, so we talked about like like how you actually did the thing and the doing of the thing. Now I want to actually talk about like the words, the meaning, the whole concept behind her story of history. These conversations Black men and Black women have with the world, with each other, you both using your perspectives. I want to know more a little bit about, clearly the history has a double meaning, but her story doesn't, or does it? Because it just seems like this is her story of history and history. So to me, that seems like an impactful play on all the different things there are to communicate to and to vibe with. How did the creation of the title come about? That's a whole deep ass conversation to me.
Ooh, that's a really good question. So to answer the first question you were talking about, is there a play on HERstory? I definitely see the double meaning with history and his story being played there, but I do think that the HERstory piece, because we haven't evolved in the way that we have been fighting to evolve, that story has shifted a little bit, but it kind of stays the same. Like there's this constant revisiting of joy and pain and the stories that I even told within the piece Resilience. The things that I'm referencing within Resilience come from the civil rights movement. It comes from 1867. It comes from it's something that is being retold because we haven't been able to move past all of these struggles, and it becomes generational in a way. So there's double meaning because it's part of my story, but I'm also pulling from my ancestors. I'm pulling from my own history that lives within my bloodline, that lives within my body, because memory lives in water and our body is made up mostly of water. So if there's this trauma, right? So if there's this trauma that's associated with our being, even though I might not have lived it, I feel it. And even though we are living in a certain time right now, we are feeling this right now. So it's built on top of each other. That's such a good question. Oh my goodness, that's such a good question.
Yeah, and I think the reason that the his story doesn't always feel like the double meaning that it can potentially be is because unfortunately it has always been his story. Like that has always been the primary perspective in which we've taken and looked and the lens that we've looked at the story of people. I guess how it's always been. Be it stories of people that look like me, be it stories of people that don't look like me, femme identified. Like it's just like it has always been a primarily male perspective on story, and on top of that, male victor who usually tells that story. And so I do love the fact that, and it was like perfectly done, like her story has to be first. And I think it's very much in line with the understanding that many folks have had for years, but like finally we're able to like make succinct in 3 very simple words: Black Lives Matter. Right? It's like we've always had that understanding, but we've been able to synthesize back in 2013. Luckily, Opal, Patrice Colors, and Ms. Garza were able to like give us that, and so it is about time that we are truly like putting that perspective first, because unfortunately it is the narrative that tends to get lost the most. I mean, we can even look at it reflected in what justice looks like. Yeah, what justice looks like. We are still in the place where Breonna Taylor's killers still have jobs. Everyone was like, we had the same level of outrage for what happened to her and what happened to George Floyd. Like George Floyd got justice, not the justice that he deserved, but like a model of that. Like we're still having this conversation. We are still having this conversation. So
that reminds me also though of, yes, the emphasis on putting her story first and telling a story that often gets pushed back to the side or just not talked about at all. And, we know about we don't know about all the contributions of Black women in history as it pertains to American culture. We just don't know those stories. And so those are, starting to be told, like Heather was saying. It also makes me think about this though, because since the patriarchal lens has been in the forefront, I feel like this is also an opportunity for a retelling of Black men to retell their story and also see their evolution. And I feel like there's a particular Black male voice that does have the opportunity to come to the forefront, which is acknowledging the things that need to be amplified, while also kind of doing like a course correct and being able to evolve from their own stature and history too. So like, it seems like one conversation has the opportunity to get ahead of the other, if that makes sense, where you have, you know, we have to still tell y'all what old girl did in 1862. And there gets to be like a new narrative of like, what does it mean to be a Black man in America? What does it mean to be a Black man and Black women? What does it mean to, like, what is masculinity? What is hyper masculinity? What is toxicity? All this stuff that I think is a conversation that should be had more and more and more. Do you think any of your pieces speak to that?
Greg has so you know, I'm gonna let you take over because the one I have in mind. No, so Brown Paper Woman is the piece where we introduce that conversation of relearning what it means to be masculine in a world where that has been used against the feminine, you know? So like just the piece Brown Paper Woman in itself is like how I've never learned how to treat things encased in brown right. And it's not just it's brown in him representing himself, but then also in the way in which he interacts with women as well. And that piece that and he had a movement to it this time. I'm sorry, Greg. I'm so proud of you. Like that piece in itself. And that's a 3-part piece, and that was just part 1 or 2.
That's part 2.
Part 2, and it explores this. It's so beautiful, and then it opens the door for this conversation.
And speaking directly to something that you just said, Lisa, how unfortunately there's a tendency for one part of the conversation to kind of get ahead of the other. I tend to find that happens when it's not a dialogue, when you're not trying to amplify, or not trying to get there together. I find it is very easy, specifically when fighting against like oppressive systems. It's very easy to kind of fall into the trap of seeking privilege instead of equality. Like I'm seeking what is best for me in this moment as opposed to trying to advocate to what's best for us and not seeing us as in us. And so it's just like, unfortunately, I tend to find that is the space in which narratives get left behind, people get left behind, because we're seeking proximity to something that doesn't paint us the way that we have been told we're supposed to be paying because of the skin that we're in, specifically men. And with brown paper women, having a conversation about where I learned to be man is from women. Like I was constantly being told by these women, these are the things that you should do, these are the things that you shouldn't do. So they're constantly telling me this, but how easily it was for me to follow the example of the men that they brought into their lives. And so like I was being told one thing, but what I was following was something else. And those two ideologies were constantly in conflict with each other because these men specifically learned how to be men or continue to go about this idea or notion of what masculinity looks like through this idea of lack or minimizing. It's like, in order for me to be more man, you need to be more woman, or you can't have the same position of power as me. Like I must dominate, I must do all of these things, and not understanding is it's like it's not a pie. It's not like that's not how this works. We're humans, and there is enough space for all of us. And then last thing I'll say is ultimately the reckoning that has to come with that conversation is acknowledging that there is this cycle that is very easy to fall into.
That's my coffee. So commercial break. Keep going. We
live, y'all. Keep going, Greg.
I would say, shoot, what was my? How we break the cycle is acknowledge that a cycle is happening. I think it's very easy as like to play the game of like oppression Olympics with other marginalized people. You're just like, well, my hurt is more than your hurt because you know.
Man.
and on top of that, we then have the unfortunate societal backing of like men's pain is more important than women's pain, because we acknowledge men's pain, but we don't acknowledge women's pain. If nothing else, unfortunately, the fact that women have been put, specifically Black women, have been put in a position to be resilient, and like having to, or else they literally will not survive, because that is a primary that women have had to take on. Now that is used against them in the sense of like, oh, these bad things are happening to you, but like, I mean, Black girl magic, you'll get through it. It'll be fine. It's just like it allows people to just be like, you know, you got this. Like, just go ahead and just do the thing you're gonna do, right? You black girl magic, you know?
Not acceptable.
This is taking me into exactly where I wanted to go. I was like, okay, if this could have 3 parts, I would want to talk about the thing. I would want to talk about how you did the thing, the actual thing, but then also like the things. So now I want to transition into talking about like the material as it pertains to society, and as it pertains to us, because it's like, no doubt, y'all were phenomenal. Y'all were amazing. I hope there's a way that I could see it again. There was lines and moments that I carry with me that I still just replay, because I'm like, wow, that was really good. And it makes me want to invest back into my writing. So you were talking about, like, for example, this whole need for Black women to be strong. And so I want to talk about that a little bit, because I wrote something that just simply says, you saying I'm strong doesn't make me any stronger. Then I have these moments, and Heather, tell me if you ever feel like this, but I have these moments where it's like, okay, I don't feel like being strong, but I have to, or else the things won't get done. So I have to do it. So it's like, okay, you're right. I did trudge through, but that doesn't mean I wanted to. So how do you navigate that, or how do you use your poetry to navigate this world of like, you're supposed to be strong, you're supposed to have it all together, but in reality, you are strong and you do have it together. But it's just like, people don't know the cost of that. I know.
So the first thing that popped into my head was actually the last piece that is that you see in the show. It is currently untitled, and it was at a moment where I felt like so many people were having to step up in the space to so many people had to step up in a space and lead these revolutions across this country just to get folks to pay attention.
Can you hold on 1 second?
And I am still trying to wrap my brain around what came out of me. And it came from a place of, I am tired of having to defend who I am and how my place in this world should be accepted and you know, asking the question of, a lot of people are asking the question around, well, why are things burning up? Why are they burning things up? Guess what? Fire draws attention. You weren't paying attention before when we tried to have nice conversations. You weren't paying attention before when folks were peacefully kneeling. You weren't paying attention when
my thing about that is when people go into the whole like, why are they burning things up? These are also the same people that like, burn it to the ground. And you're like, okay. And they're like, but I didn't.
Not mine. Don't touch my stuff.
Like, you said burn it all. They burnt a little bit of it and you are upset.
Right. But fire draws attention. I think that's where where the core of this piece started from, was like, we could not get attention until things were burnt up. And it's not that, you know, like, I understand where it's coming from. Not to say that I was out there doing it, but I understand where the pain is coming from. And we're not asking the questions, well, why? Or they ask the question, but then answer it before they even ask the people that are affected by it. You're answering my question without even considering the folks that are affected. And there's a reason why things are happening the way they are happening. And it's coming from a place of pain. It's coming from a place of being fed up. It's coming from, we tried this your way. And now you're going to pay attention. So like,
there's a line.
I don't know. That's such a deep question.
Yeah, there's a line. Wait, Greg, do you have anything to say to that before I say something else?
Oh, no, please.
I was gonna say your line about how death makes students of us all.
Mm-hmm.
Where did that come from for you?
Ooh, okay.
Right.
Um,
I love you. You're the
I'll tell you
best.
why I asked that, because it's a bold statement to say like something makes students of us all. What that tells me is that we didn't say people are going to be good students. Some people might fail at what they learn. We said, there's a lot of people who come to school unprepared, don't have pencil. So it's like, what does that phrase mean to you?
it is unfortunately the great equalizer of all things. In the fight for equality, social justice, um, we would like to think that the basis in which we would all be able to connect is on our humanity. But humanity is something that is continuously denied to all people. And so to me,
Mm.
that line is more of a, well, what is the thing that is inescapable for everybody? Despite how much, you can have all the money in the world, you can stack, you can stack your papers, you can build a cryogenic things, you can do all the things, you can have all the transport, you can do all of that. You can have Midas's insurance, but it is the one thing that you can escape. And it is, and I love the fact that you speak about like not the qualifier of what type of student. It's like, well, it puts us in a position to learn something. So do you
Mm.
actually learn? For me, it was the reason I specifically wrote that piece is because my mother and when I saw the picture of Sandra Bland when she was in her car, not that picture, but the picture she's in her car, smiling. It looked exactly like my mother. Like she looked like exactly like a picture of my mother who was also passed. Um, and I specifically remember the picture. It was my mother. She was in her uniform because she worked in hospitality for 13 years. She was in her gray uniform with her hair pulled back in a bun and like her smile. Like their smiles are like exactly the same and almost exactly in the same position in that picture. Um, and I felt that from my mother passing away when I from a young age, I learned what what being independent is like, what support really looks like, what love really looks like. Because my sister had to took me in after my mother passed. My sister's and she at the time had a 5-year-old and then had to deal with a 16-year-old and my grandmother and like and you just like so what I learned from my mom passing is just like how do you take personal accountability and make sure that you're not, I mean, she'd never say this, but it's like to not be a burden on my sister who already had so much left on her plate, including all of my mother's medical bills.
Mm.
And so that is the lesson that I learned. And always it's just like, what does support look like specifically for the Black women who are still here? Like that's what I had to learn with my sister. Unfortunately, we are still in a place where we haven't learned that this system was not built to protect us. I feel like that is one of the primary lessons that can be learned from the murder of Sandra Bland. I don't care what you want to call it. It was a murder of Sandra Bland. Unfortunately, the people who look like Sandra Bland or can see their humanity in Sandra Bland have been learning this lesson and continue to learn that lesson. The individuals who are in a position of power to take life away from people like Sandra Bland still have not. And so we are still in this place of questioning. Is it's like, we're all students, we're all learning, we all have the ability to grow. Are you? Because unfortunately, I have been told that I have to constantly do so. So,
Mm.
Wow. I know what I remember journeying through in my head while thinking, when you consume art, the cool thing is that somebody could take away something different than what you originally intended. And it's for them to, interpret. Um, Heather, there was this piece you did that stuck out to me about your name, what your name should have been. What's the name of that piece?
Should have been. Look at that. I did the work.
Can you talk about that piece some more? Like, what inspired you to write that?
So, I mean, you all know my name is Heather. How many Black Heathers do you know?
You.
Exactly. Like that right there. And so, I mean, I talk about this more in the piece that I did, Inheritance. But the way in which I got my name is cute. Like my mom and my grandmother looked at one another and said Heather, and that was my name. And I was like, universe, okay, I see you. But because I'm growing up, I was the only Heather in grammar school and the only Heather in high school. And then I went to college. And I went to a predominantly white institution, and that was the first time someone called Heather, and they weren't talking about me. I embarrassed myself, like Heather, and I'm across the dining hall, like you're not talking to me. And so it brought up this questioning for me of why Heather, why was that a name that they felt worked, and then I started questioning the system and how it works against us in ways that at times we fall into a trap with. So folks name their children based on whether or not they can get a job. And the names that they choose are historically European names. So people do that on purpose, but it's like, it's stripping me of my heritage, it's stripping me of my creativity, it's stripping me from my history. And so I always wondered why I wasn't named Anaya or Amara or Imani or Sarare or something that connected me to my roots, because in this world, being connected to Black roots isn't celebrated. It isn't something that is recognized. And then we find ourselves, there's a word I'm looking for, assimilating. We find ourselves assimilating and losing who we are in the process. And so the piece should have been, explores all the names that I could have been, but ended up with Heather.
That makes
and it was a protective piece. It's a piece to keep me away from all the things that come with being named something that is not your name.
I definitely understand as a Lisa Beasley. I have walked into many places and they're like, no, we're looking for a Lisa. And I'm like, that's me.
What you think happens when they Heather Roberts?
Yeah.
And I walk in the room. They're like,
it makes me, so that piece made me think about all the things I didn't know I was taking on because of the Eurocentric things that are put on us without us asking, because of the survival for the people that came before us. And I think about like those interactions I have through email before I show up in the room, like before I put my face in that email signature. That all plays a part in it, but that's something that you don't know what's happening in the moment. So the question I have for us is these realizations. So in growth, in growth, there's discomfort, uncomfort, pain. Sometimes realizing things are more painful than the thing actually happening, because now you have an awareness of it. So
truth.
How do y'all handle the awareness of these things? Because that kind of like messed me up a little bit, where I was like, there's so many things that have been put on me that I don't know, that have had a way and a hand in shaping me and shaping my perspective. And the more I bust out of that, the more I'm like, what have y'all been doing to me this whole time? Those moments of realization. Sometimes I get upset. Sometimes I get very upset because I'm like, the whole time this could have been different. How do y'all react to these sweeping realizations that you have?
There, a point of I feel like a point of pride. It's always afterwards, though. I can think of two things immediately. One that is connected to the play, and then one that's more on a personal level. Even though the play, the piece, I think of Smile. Realizing when the pandemic happened, or began. We're still in it. Some people don't realize we're still in it, but that's a whole other.
Lord.
But realizing that something that I knew but really kind of like threw me off is interact with me or how people take me in. When I walk into a room, yes, they see a Black male. But my mother spent a lot of money on these braces, right? And these teeth right here. I've put to good use. The primary use of them is I tend to be a very gregarious, like affable individual, but like I've realized pretty early on, once my braces were off and I was actually proud of showing my teeth, disarming people through smile. Like there's just something about it that just makes me go, oh, cool. And but when you're in a pandemic and people can't see the bottom half of your face and you're interacting with them, there's something like they see history before human. You're just like, oh, like I'm walking down the street because I work at the good old Starbucks. And I like there are people who are just like, I mean, just the interactions and everything like that. Like that was something I didn't even realize until later. Just like, yeah, you're always smiling. And there's like, oh, for you, that gave you a level of comfort. Like that was the thing that you were seeking, that comfort. And going sliding right into the second thing is actually my name. Until my second year of grad school, so until 2010, so only 10 years, I was Greg Geffrard. That is how everyone said my name.
No.
And so it's funny. So it wasn't my first year, my second year, because one of my teachers, Dr. Kim Mara, I believe it was just like, well, how do you want people to say your name? Like, or how do you want to be known? And I was like, actually, my name is Greg Geffrard. And like these 13 individuals that I had been in classes with for somewhere between 10 to 14 hours a day sometimes, like all kind of went, what the hell? You know, it's just like, and it became a thing. It's like, oh, Geffrard. Cracked up and everything of that nature. But it was a realizing in that moment, it's like, I haven't been myself for 24 years at that point, like fully myself, because I was just so tired of people like saying my name wrong that I was just like, it's Geffrard. I know that, like, I know you can't roll your R's. You don't understand that it's a French ass name and your D is silent. So it's Geffrard. Like, that's how you're going to say it, because like, I know that is what you are comfortable with. I will play the assimilation with you. But like, assimilation unfortunately leads to erasure.
Yes.
And this is not something that only like Black folks deal with. Like, you talk your white identified folks, man, and just like y'all cut off a lot of like the end of y'all last names and stuff like that to kind of like cut away from like your place of origin. I think of like many individuals from the Slavic, from Slavic places in Europe. Many individuals are part of the Asian diaspora. Like they come over here and take on a completely different name. Like there's a reason for, and the names that they pick tend to be very American, very Americanized, Eurocentric names. But you lose, like, what do you lose when you have to leave those pieces of yourself behind? And it's a lot more than you think. And then when you're at the place, very much like you're talking about, Lisa, when you're like, oh shit, I'm reclaiming my whole self, like all of it, then you get really mad because you're like, why haven't I been claiming my whole self? And you're like, I haven't been. And then you go, no, y'all haven't let me.
It's a process. It is a process.
I was like, oh, if I wasn't myself, there was possibility that y'all was gonna kill me.
Like, even if you think about like last names, like you're talking about your last name, like my last name is Roberts. First of all, that's a whole nother story. But like at one point we took on someone else's last name that had no descendant to us. Once we were brought to this country, and we can go down that whole thing, but like we took on our slave master's name. What? So we lost connection that way. Like, there's a process.
Greg, you mentioned that you noticed when you put the mask on, people's reaction to you was different. So living life in a mask outside in the world, does that make you a little afraid? Like, how does that make you feel to know that like the thing that you use to disarm to keep you safe has to be covered up? Sorry if I'm bringing up stuff that you need to talk about in therapy.
No, I talked to my therapist about this. She's real dope. I love her. It's the reason that it's specifically extra scary for me is because I'm somebody who, one, lives kitty corner from a police station, and two, walks to work at 4:15 in the morning. So there's a very specific intersect of all the things that I am that screams danger, specifically at 4:00 in the morning.
Mm.
And so something that I used to do, because I've been living in this neighborhood for 8 years. I'm on the north side of Chicago, 3 blocks away from Wrigley Field. So that gives you a good idea of the demographic of people who I'm surrounded by. Something that I used to do while walking down the street is like sing, like loudly, like pretty loudly, because I never wanted to be in a position where people would say like, this person snuck up on me. It's just like, there's a black man walking down the street singing. Like, I mean, what do I need? Do I need to tap dance behind you too? Like to make I am making myself like very presently known here. But to know that I, on appearance now, have been reduced down to someone's limited imagination of what I am, and I have one less defense against that. It's tough, and to be honest with you, like, I mean, I'm already about this. Like, I don't really want to be outside because pandemic, but it makes it a lot easier to stay inside because there's nothing out there for me right now. Like, these streets is hot, I will protest and everything like that, but yeah, nah.
That reminds me of a couple of things of the hyper visibility of Black men that people are afraid of, and the hyper invisibility that Black women have to deal with. When I think about, Heather, you had mentioned that shopping at Iowa for you is a no-go, is a hard pass, because it's like they don't have this, or anything I need. And it's just like, I was talking to somebody the other day, I forgot what we were talking about, but just like, here are one of the reasons why Black women are so dope. Why are you licking my...
I knew she was gonna make a cameo at some point.
Real life just going down on my shoulder. So can I have a second, please? Stop. You want me? I'm almost done. We're gonna take questions, and you get to be here for questions. But the idea that we have to make a way literally out of no way, because absolutely nothing is created for us at all. Can you talk more about your experiences with that? Like, all the things you have to do to just accommodate life as being a Black woman. Stop it.
We are the most natural entrepreneurs, period.
Mm-hmm.
Like, when I think back to my college experience, being in Iowa and needing to get my hair done, we didn't have a hairdresser to go to. So my girl did hair in her dorm room. Or if we needed, what were some other things? Like, hair is the first thing that comes to mind for me. Like, we found ways to make it through by building community. Yeah, Sadra. Sadra went to college with me. So like we found ways to support one another that we didn't even know we needed to create because it was in our communities. And then when we left and we were like, oh, we can't go down the street to get shea butter, or what's the rat tail comb? Like, not going into a beauty supply store in Iowa and ask for a rat tail comb. Or having to explain to the RAs on campus why the alarm system is going off because we're flat ironing our hair and it's setting off the alarms because of the steam and the smoke. Like, you just learn how to support one another, and through that you had community. Like, you walk down the street, you went like this, that universal "what's up?" You already knew you had each other's back. So like, it builds a sense of entrepreneurship within us that we don't even know exists because we've had to reposition ourselves in order to survive. So there's beauty that comes out of it, but there's also like help me make this a little bit easier for myself so that I can.
Like I'm creative because if it was up to the world, I'd be naked. I'd never have stockings. I'd never comb my hair.
Yeah, like
I've had to create all these things because literally I just be out here looking bogus.
We do. We have a question from my girl Kita. I'm gonna put it up on the screen. Oh no, we can't see your face. Okay, real quick. So my girl Kita asked, have you received different feedback or comments from HERstory of history during your performance this time around? While people are becoming more socially aware or social aware of the Black experience in comparison to the other versions of the performance. That question is awesome. Hey, Greg.
Yeah. What's interesting about this, because Heather talked about it earlier. I feel weird calling you Heather.
You can call me Byrd. Like it's Byrd. Yes, that's weird because I was like, Byrd seems weird too.
Yeah, no, Byrd. I'm the only one calls it Byrd. Byrd says, as Byrd said earlier, like we've done 7 versions of this show. And I believe the 3rd time that we did it was the day after the 2016 election.
Woo.
And it resonated.
At a predominantly white institution.
Yep.
My alma mater.
Yeah. And so it was
gonna come from that one yet. Y'all gonna wake up 3 days from now and that's when trauma gonna hit of that specific thing.
We cried so much before we even
yeah, it was one of those specials where we felt the trauma while it was happening. We didn't need to process it. This conversation, the fact that we've done different iterations of this show and the conversation still feels relevant is amazingly heartbreaking. It's great because it continues to give Byrd and I an opportunity to like engage in this conversation, but it's the same conversation. It's unfortunate. I don't feel like it's an evolution of the conversation. It's just a different lens of the conversation. We have different names to add to the list. We are, like back then we were looking at Mike Brown. Now we're looking at George Floyd. Like Corinne Gaines, Sandra Bland, Breonna Taylor. Like we're just like, unfortunately, it's the same situation, and we're just adding different names. It's just like insert Black person here, killed by the state. Insert Black person here, killed in the hands of whiteness. You're just like, when are we going to get out of this cycle? And how many times do we have to do the show before something shifts? But I am grateful, and I'm like, I know I sound very pessimistic about it all, but like I am grateful that people are engaging in the conversation differently, despite the fact that I'm feeling like it is the same conversation, but there are more people who are willing to actually listen, as opposed to just stepping in and trying to be right. They're trying to get it right now, and that feels like that difference now.
Yeah. And the comments I would say are, how do I explain this? So when you're in person, we get to have like that real time, see people's facial expressions, have conversations with them afterwards. I know there was one that will forever be stuck in my mind and remind me why I do this work. When we did a festival, the Odyssey Festival, and a student came up to me, and after everyone left, started like, I'm gonna start crying. She started bawling, and I let it happen, and I was like, I'm here for you. I see you. And when she was actually able to catch her breath, let us know that this was the first time that she had people who looked like her in front of her, and that she actually, so kind of to your point, like was able to have language to what was happening to her. She was in a fairly diverse school, but there were still not a lot of Black people, which was wild to me. And it was her and her sister, and they were adopted by a white family. And so when she was experiencing all of these things, she couldn't go home and talk to her parents. She didn't have a teacher to go to talk to about what was happening. So she was sitting with this, and it was weighing heavy on her. And it was not until we were able to get on stage and just tell our stories that it broke her open. And I'm like, right. This is why we are doing this and having these conversations. And I think right now in the virtual world, because we are in a space where we're not in front of people, we have opportunities to have conversations like this. And that's why I'm so excited to build with the three of us here to continue these conversations. Because even though it might not happen right after the show, I'm fine. Even though it might not happen right after the show, we are building spaces like this, and we are being very intentional about bringing folks in from the comment section into the conversation, so that not only will you have the language too, so that you're not sitting with this boulder on your entire body, but we can actually problem solve together. So that kind of like, I didn't even mean to do that, but that kind of brings us into another question that came up. Hey, Roz, how you doing? Oh, I'm gonna take a breath real quick.
Yeah, so I think this question is, do you have any hope, ... this time? So I feel that. I can speak to that a little bit. I know the question is for Heather and Byrd, but
no, you are a part of this.
I have hope that I will never go back to a world in which my Black life doesn't matter. I have hope that new precedents are being set by people where it's just another layer of justice. Like, it's not a water fountain, it's securing the bag, it's getting the house. It's, these things and these systems are being questioned to a point where some of them will not go back to normal. How long is it going to take for us to get there is where my hope and my faith kind of is weary, and I have to just stick to my day-to-day and my self-care. But I have hope that this movement is a part of a larger moment than just this. It's never going to be like 2016, I think it was, when things started it was happening all over again, because this time it's like every 2 or 4 years the big movement comes. The thing about this one that's different is everybody's at home. People have probably gotten a little bit more in touch with their humanity because they've known how to go without. They've been around their family for way more than they want to. So now they can think conceptually more like, that's somebody's sister, that's somebody's brother. So in that realm, I could see it. It is going to depend on the majority's work. If this continues to get better, but I know you have the me's and the us's of the world that's like, I'm not going back. I'm different forever. So my expectations of how I expect to be treated will never be the same. And there's no going back. So I think my hope lies within how I know I'm carrying myself from here on forward and the things that I stand for. Do y'all have any hope this time around? Like, what makes this time around different for y'all, if it does?
I do. I'm thinking about right now, funny enough, the Black Panther Party. And what feels different to me from 2016 to now, because I think around 2016, 2017 is when like a swell of this nature happened, and then unfortunately became quiet again. I mean, still there, but a murmur. The ask is different. The reason I bring up the Black Panther Party is because I think about 10-point plan. It's like, we want. So there's no more just like, can we have, if you please, maybe this time I'm gonna, and it's just like, nah. It's like, this is what we want.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted it 11 years ago, but we're gonna take it right. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, what I'm also seeing, which is very encouraging, is just like, no more of this idea of like, how do we find a way to circumvent and navigate through the system and everything like that. A very specific way of seeing that is just like, defund the police. Ain't no like, we need police reform. Is just like, nah, y'all got too much money, y'all got too much resources. I'm literally paying you to kill people that look like me. We ain't got the time for that. Divest from you, military industrial complex. I'm giving them this stuff. We don't need you to be doing all of this. Yes, we can talk about it's just like, this job is hard. It's just like, well, that's what we're trying to do. We're just trying to make sure to take responsibility away from you, because you're not supposed to be a counselor. You're not supposed to be a social worker. You're not supposed to be all of these other things. So let's actually
be trying to thank us because we're taking some stuff off of their plates.
Yeah. It's like people who have had individuals who have had less training than teachers have to go through should not be the ones responsible for public safety on a myriad of levels, on a mental, literal, physical, like they're not equipped to deal with that. So like, defund, put it in a different place. Like no more talks about like reform or trying to change something that's working exactly the way it was built. We done with that. And that my hope comes from just, like the audacity to be like, I'm done with this. Like, because this thing never worked. But now we all know that this ain't never worked.
And you know what? I think that's the difference this time is going back to, yes, the ask is different because at first, or not at first, but the few times before, because, you know, as Black people, you could take your turns. You're like, I got to sit this one out for mental health reasons. I I can't be here on this ride. Or you're like, you know, on the front lines the first time. We take turns. We support each other in that way. But there's this thing that happens where you're like, I don't know if this is going to get any better, but you have to trust that it does for you and for the next generation. But the thing about it is, Madison was talking about the police the other day, and I forgot what she said, but I said in all earnest, I was like, yeah, they probably won't be a thing by the time you're my age, so I wouldn't concern yourself with that. I lost my train of thought because she's tickling in my ear.
What is that hope? Yes.
Huh?
Yeah, I was gonna say, while you get your train of thought back,
if it never comes, it might never come.
I'm the type of person where I always have hope, and sometimes that can be because I have this hope. It could be something that is difficult for me because I get let down over and over and over again. And it's like, how do I continuously hold on to that space? And the thing that I am holding on to now is the beauty that is happening with folks who have been coming together, but they're coming together in a way that I haven't seen before. Like people are joining forces, and we are realizing that we have the opportunity to shift our communities, and we have the power to do that. And that's where, like, okay, there's something I can hold on to. Like there are days where like my hope lets me down. But I wake up, I take a nap because it's something about when I'm super mad, me taking a nap and waking back up like with a fresh start, even though it might be the middle of the day. I'm able to reconnect to that hope and to see ways in which we're able to have conversations around what does it look like for us to be in charge of our own selves and be in charge of our own communities and be resources for each other. Like we're seeing people do this with the school systems right now. They're like, oh, okay, we're not going back to school in person. How can we build our own nests to where we are now back into the mindset of it takes a village to transform. It takes a village to give our students and our youth the tools. It takes a village to hold each other accountable for what we're doing. And there will be bumps in the road while we figure this out. But it seems as if like we are dedicated to figuring out what this looks like. And this is not to say that this wasn't happening before, but now that we're burning shit, it's now getting that national attention of, yep, this is the work that we've been trying to get y'all on board for, and we are dedicated to this. And so I have the hope.
I remember my thought about the ask being different. Now she's sniffing my ear. Feel sorry for her. I think about like the ask being different. Like all the other times, it seemed as though it was stop killing us, and this time I feel like it became more about like, okay, we're going to state the obvious that a Black woman should not be murdered in her house. So none of this is okay. We've had a problem with all of it. It's how you treat me at work, how you let me into schools. We actually have a problem with all of it. Throw it all away. And I think that's been coming more to the forefront.
Yeah, for sure. You being like the definition of a true Black woman, doing double duty.
Trying to smell my mouth. This is motherhood.
Look, I love the cameos that happen.
This is hope in human form. Like this
is you know, oh my gosh.
This is what this is ultimately what people don't understand is it's like ultimately what we're seeking is the simplicity that has been offered to that has been denied to too many people. which is the ability to do this. It's like how many joyful moments like this that's happening right now between Lisa and her daughter. It's like that's taken away. Like how many of these moments, how much of our time is taken through over incarceration, through detentions, through literal deaths? How many like families are left in the space where you're just like you can't have something of this nature? So yes, it is, like it is very apparent. Just like trying to juggle, it is not the easiest thing in the world. But it's like it's made harder by not allowing us to just do that, by not allowing us to just exist. And so,
Madison, do you have anything to say? What do you think about the intersectionality of being a Black girl?
My skin is better than his skin.
Oh, your skin is better than his skin? Why? Let's dig into that a little bit.
No, my skin is brighter.
Oh, it's brighter. Yeah, that's an acknowledgement. Yeah, people are different shades of brown. Really inclusive phase of learning where she points out everything she sees. And then we talk about gender a lot. Whenever I talk to her about is she interested in a boy or a girl, it's always really cute. She's learning a lot. Also had to put her whole fist in her mouth, which is really good.
I see. That's hilarious. It looks like we have a question. It's probably going to be our last question. Is that cool?
Don't be gross. Don't be nice.
She in front of the camera. Here we go. Oh no, it blocks out your entire face.
I was going to read it. You want me to read it?
Yes.
I have thoughts of looking at who I am and being proud of all that I am as a Black human being. How do you look at the race overall and be completely proud of who you are based on how you are portrayed, based on how we are portrayed and looked at in society? I walk down the street a lot thinking of what people are perceiving of me as due to how we are as Black humans. I feel like I have to be conscious of how I act at all times. Yep.
Shout out to Chantel. Chantel be number one. She's around for everything. She supports so much of what we do. And wanted to actually ask us this question when Greg and I were on a live. And we have the perfect opportunity to answer it now. So thank you for your question, my dear. How do you look at the race? How you look at race overall and be completely proud of who you are based on right? So I think this goes back to the process. There's a process in unlearning. We're taught about who we are and how much we should be in love with ourselves and celebrate ourselves. Because that's not something that is taught to us naturally. Like we have to search for that love. We have to search for other folks who look like us. And so because we don't have these images of ourselves being celebrated, we have to unlearn I don't want to say self-hatred, but like we have to learn how to love ourselves, right? And so that it takes us through, this is a great closing question actually, because it takes us through learning about our names and then getting mad about our names and then potentially renaming ourselves and reestablishing who we are. It's not one of those things that is a quick fix, but it's something that I believe should be dedicated to. And because it takes so much work, making sure that we're not doing it alone. Like I am thankful enough to where I'm having a difficult day with something that's going on. I'm able to call on Greg. I'm able to call on my guy EJ or Jamie or Chantel or Karia. Like I have a list of people who I can call, like my mentor from starting back in like 2005. When something happens in the workplace and I am upset, I can call him and be like, yo, Brother Ken, I need you to help me unpack this. And so even though we might not right now in this time, and I believe that there is a space where we will be able to be celebrated in a way that we deserve, it's a process of learning how to love ourselves. And then once we get past that, being unapologetic about it and being able to move through that space in there. So not a quick fix, but definitely possible. And it's freeing. It's so it's that way.
Yeah, I have a quick answer to that. We're still here. That's where the resilience and everything. We are people that they've been trying to erase for over 450 years, and we're still here. that says something. Unfortunately, they have taken way too many of us, and yet we're still here. So
Come from an
the
ancestry of resilience.
and so we get upset. The reason we fight and rail and resist and do all of this is because we know ultimately the thing that they can't seem to get through their brains, which is we're not going anywhere.
Mm-mm.
So while you're adjusting and figuring that the fuck out, you also going do right by me. um, we gonna have some problems because we're not talking about trivial things here. We're talking about literal lives. So,
Yeah, for me, if I could speak on that for a little bit, it's sometimes I have to block out the noise and I have to block out what people are perceiving of me. Sometimes that's not being on the internet for a little bit because all you see
Yes.
is a lot of anti-Black woman stuff. And it's just like, wow, I'm tired of hearing about myself every time I open my phone. So I have to like cut out some of the noise and also I think I'm at that unapologetic point where it's like my answer, once I discovered that everybody was really had so many different versions of how they viewed me. I'm a mom, so I'm supposed to act like this. I'm a this, so I'm supposed to be this. I'm supposed to act like this. Then I just started doing what I wanted to do all the time, which is very freeing. So that's my everybody else has on pantsuits. I'm wearing sweatpants. That's my like inner rebel where she's like, I'm about to do whatever I want to do, knowing that it comes from a foundation based off of good home training. But for the most part, I just kind of try to block out the noise and literally do whatever my energy is calling for in the moment.
That's such a good question to
is
kind of wrap up on. I'm not gonna lie.
This has been beautiful. How do y'all feel?
I'm holding back right now because I wanna literally start crying.
Why? What's bringing that emotion up?
I'm thankful, one, like, to be able to be in a space where something that I wanted to do actually happened. And we were able to jump over so many different hurdles to move from live to virtual to being in 2 pandemics at once, maybe even some more. And having Greg on board, even though we were both like, how in the hell are we going to pull this off with the mental state that we are in? To have folks view the show, to have folks in this chat with us, and to build, Lisa, to have you here and to build, like, dreams are coming true in a way that I did not imagine. Like, I thought I was going to be one way and the world said, nope, we're going to redirect you. To have everyone here with us and like contributing in the chat and asking amazing questions. Like, I am overwhelmed with the amount of, I'm just overwhelmed. Like, I don't have a word to sum it up. And I'm just thankful for literally everyone being here on this journey with me.
Well, you are supported, both of you are, because one thing that's so impressive is that as an artist, it's hard to finish stuff, period. And you out here finishing projects on projects in a pandemic, within a pandemic. It just goes to show how important Black creativity is. It just goes to show that this was our saving grace because it's also your saving grace. So it's one of those things where it's like myself, and I'm sure some people in the chat can agree, it's just like you hear so many different versions of what's wrong with the stature of Black, like what's wrong with me, what's wrong with us. And to hear it put into words during this time makes it our choice, if that makes sense. So it makes it much more special because people choose to invite you into their homes digitally, however they can. And the words resonate. And the work is easy. And I think people want to congratulate artists for completing something and seeing something to fruition, because I think we all know it's not easy. on a regular, beautiful pandemicless Sunday. It is not easy. So I thank you for honoring because you could have been like, I'm not doing this. It would have been so easy for me to be like, I'm not doing this. And then I wouldn't have got my life on a random Thursday afternoon. So thank you for being obedient to your energy and your calling. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you. And, I feel like, Greg, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to just quickly say thank you just to several people, Kyle, Mallory, Grace, Abraham, all the folks at the St. Louis Fringe, and also Shannon Metesky.
Yes.
A big thank you to Shannon Metesky, marketing, just thank you for dealing with my technologically inept self.
Thank you for dealing with both of us.
And obviously, and very importantly, thank you so much, Lisa, for helping to facilitate and guide this conversation. It's greatly appreciated. And I love you, Byrd.
Man, you ride or die, for real. I want to let folks know about the amazing opportunity that they have to kind of commemorate this moment that we are in right now, and being able to say, yo, I see this, and this is tied to the HERstory of history journey that is just beginning, y'all. So if y'all see the shirt that Greg is wearing right now, and has been wearing in all of the promo that we have been putting out into the world, we have been gracious enough to work with the Told Y'all brand, Lisa, and her entire team, and we are offering a discount on the Told Y'all shirts. Like, what better way to commemorate this by saying Told Y'all Black Woman for HERstory of history show? Like, this is where we are right now. So I am putting some information in the chat box right now. If y'all want to get your copy, get your t-shirt, sweatshirts, they're like mugs and hats and bags,
coffee cups, tote bags, dog bandanas.
Get your merch, because this is a statement that is being made right now. And when y'all use this website to get your merch, there's a discount that we are being able to offer for you all. So make sure y'all check that out. Make sure that
to the people in the chat here, the whole store, the link that you're going to set them up, the whole store is discounted, and right now you could get an additional 15% off, for the next few days. So the store comes discounted. So if you get it within the next week or two, you get a discount within a discount.
Within a discount. Look at that. So let's make sure that you all, supported us in a way that I am forever grateful for, and that we're going to continue to build with. Make sure that we're also supporting Black businesses along with the Told Y'all brand, to make a statement with everything that we've been doing and building up until this point. So Lisa, thank you for that collaborative piece, and for being here.
Bring it, Greg. You wear it well. You're one of my billboards. Thank you so much. Thank you.
With the pointing too, because it's like Told Y'all and the point
in that color. When I get it for myself, I always get the black one. I'm like, I like it in that color. I'm gonna have to try it.
Yo,
model right there.
You Greg, do you have anything else that you would like to say to the folks before we close out?
Just thank you. There are 1,000,001 things that you could have been doing at this time, and you decided to spend some time with us. And whether it's right now during this talk back, or your 45 minutes watching the piece itself. So all I have is gratitude, love. Please stay safe out there and continue taking care of your hearts. This is tough. We may not all be in the same boat, but we are definitely all caught in the same storm. So if you can, somebody on your boat with you, just bring them along if you have the capacity for it. So take care of yourselves.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg. Lisa, you got anything you want to?
That was a beautiful ending. If I could say the exact same thing, get the boats in the storms, people. Just remember. Said it so eloquently. No, but I really appreciate y'all. I really have fun. I hope there are more of these in the future. And, yes, baby. He's recording me. Thank you for giving me this space. Thank you for asking me to do it. I love having conversations like this. And for people who are watching, take it one day at a time. Be really, really good to yourself. Do something nice for yourself. Take your time. Get as many naps as you can. Rest revolutionary if you're Black. If you white, Google something that you could do right now after this. Call your governor or something. Thank you. Oh, she's getting you on camera. You know, say bye. Oh, this is and I definitely.
That's so great. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, y'all. I'm just filled with so much joy right now. Words are somehow hard to come by right now, but as everyone else said, I thank you all for being here, for joining us. Please make sure you stay tuned in, because this is literally the beginning. This is not the end of the St. Louis Fringe in terms of this conversation and community that we will be building. If you don't get anything else from this, know that you are not alone in how you may be feeling. And there are words that you can assign to the feelings that you have. And we hope that we've given you a little bit of that with us today. So I thank you all for being here. And as usual, y'all know the deal. Make sure y'all keep flying. See y'all next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.